Good evening, followers of fear, and welcome to our final reading from Hannah and Other Stories. Tonight, I take you into the bowels of the Paris Catacombs as we read from the final story in Hannah, Poor Unfortunate Souls. And yes, it is inspired by a certain song from a certain nostalgic movie. Or at least the title is. I've been to the Paris Catacombs. I can honestly say they are terrifying. A lot of fun if you're me, but terrifying. Which is why I wanted to write a story set in them, and why I'm so happy I was able to. Anyway, let's get into the story, shall we? So, at the part where we pick up, our main character Ozma, who is a sobriety coach, has been tricked into following her client Naomi into the Paris Catacombs, led by the tour guide, or a cataphile, as the lovers of the catacombs are known as, by the name of Baptiste. What will they experience down there among the bones, hidden in throughout the tunnels? Let's find out. They rounded a corner, and Ozma became aware of a low thumping noise. Not a mechanical thumping, like from machinery, but something more familiar. A heartbeat? No, that wasn't it either. Now she was concentrating on it, she recognized it, and it wasn't a welcome sound. We're still going to a graffiti gallery, she asked, frowning. Not something filled with temptation? Of course, Naomi assured her. We're just going to enjoy some art. The thumping noise was growing louder and was being accompanied by electronic beats, auto-tuned singing, and the clamor of 100 or more voices. No doubt about it, this was an underground party. Crap, she thought. The little twit managed to lie to me. Ozma reached for Naomi's shoulder, but then Baptiste climbed into a hole in the ceiling and offered his hand to them. Naomi grabbed it and went up and out of sight, flashing Ozma a devilish grin as she went. Groaning, Ozma took Baptiste's proffered hand and allowed herself to be pulled up. Down a dark corridor, Ozma saw bright light spilling out of a doorway and onto Baptiste and Naomi, the latter shedding her sweatshirt to reveal a tight white blouse, perfect for partying. She turned towards Ozma with the biggest, toothiest smile on her face. Isn't this exciting? She asked. You told me we were looking at an underground graffiti gallery, and there is one. Baptiste pointed through the doorway. Ozma peered in and spotted, beyond the sound system and the throngs of people, stylized images of people's faces, scenes from history, naked bodies in various sex positions, and animals painted on the bulging rocks in such a way that they seemed almost three-dimensional. Ozma turned back to Naomi and Baptiste. You never said anything about a party, though. I neglected to tell her, Baptiste revealed, cocking a thumb at his excited client. Ozma sighed and reached for Naomi. Come on, we're going back to the hotel. But Naomi slipped away and jumped into the doorway. Oh, come on, Ozzy, she shouted over the noise. You never could have done this if you had stayed a boy in nowhere, Nebraska. Why not just enjoy it and have fun for once? She scampered into the crowd, leaving Ozma in shock. And Baptiste as well, as it turned out, for he was staring at her with wide eyes and an open mouth. Je n'avais aucune idea, he said. I had no idea. Vous n'êtes pas c'était le faire, she replied in perfect French. You weren't supposed to. She slipped past them and into the crowd, searching for her client, while also fighting off a wave of tears. The only reason Naomi had agreed to Ozma being her sobriety coach was because Ozma, in a calculated move based on researching her client, told her she was transgender and was paying for her treatments out of pocket. As expected, the little rich girl loved the idea of helping a transgender woman. It fit her self-image of someone using her social status to help the oppressed. So long as the oppressed didn't upstage her after being helped, of course. As woke as Naomi liked to think she was, she didn't have a clue when it came to being a trans woman, let alone one who struggled every day just to be who she was. For instance, that comment about staying a boy in nowhere, Nebraska. Leaving aside the point that Ozma was from upstate New York, Naomi made it sound like Ozma had made a conscious choice to leave her childhood home, go out into the big wide world, and transition. It hadn't been a choice. It had been an instinct to save her life by running away and saving herself from misery and death. Nor did the little twit know all he'd fought against just to get to where she was now, to be who she was supposed to be. On the bright side, most people couldn't tell she was assigned male at birth, not unless she told them. They then might notice a sharp curve in the face, a thickness in the fingers, or some other minor detail that pointed to her origins. But for the most part, people never saw anything, and Ozma was thankful for that. Before taking the Wiederholds as clients, she'd known plenty of trans men and women who couldn't and walk down the street without people noticing. Those people were in constant danger of getting jumped and killed. And speaking of the Wiederholds, if she didn't find Naomi and pull her out of here soon, Ozma would be out on her ass without a job. Naomi was her first client, so it would be difficult for Ozma to get another sobriety coaching job. She failed to keep her first one sober, and without a steady income, she couldn't afford her medication, which would send her back into a man's body before too long. She'd rather die than let that happen. Ozma waded through the sea of people, searching for Naomi. The room was much bigger than it had seemed from the doorway, and it spilled down other tunnels leading to God only knew where. Plus, the number of bodies dancing and grinding against one another not only made it difficult to find anyone, but it gave the room a heat that would have been impossible on its own. In her sweatshirts and jeans, Ozma began to perspire. Gasping with relief, she made it to the opposite wall and collapsed against it. Panting. A young man sitting beside her handed her an open bottle of water. She took it and drank. Merci, she said. The guy handed her another open bottle of water and then another. Ozma swallowed them down, responding with Merci every time. At the fourth bottle, he said something to her in French, but the music and the crowd were too loud to make out what he was saying. She turned away, slipped her sweatshirt off, tied the sleeves around her shoulders, and scanned the crowd again. Somehow the room seemed even more cavernous than before. Had it grown, or was that her imagination? We're in an aorta of the beast's heart, she thought. And we're all blood cells who don't know this body died a long time ago. She dived back into the crowd, towing her way carefully across the uneven floor and the pulsating, throbbing bodies. As she passed by people, she checked their faces. None were Naomi's. Around the center of the crowd, she started to feel nauseous. Her head felt weird, woolly almost. Grabbing and leaning against a stone column, Ozma watched the crowd. She gasped in wonder as rainbows sprouted from the partygoers' heads. They were beautiful, and they made the people beautiful as well. I've been drugged, she realized. But how? The water. Now that she thought about it, the water had tasted a little chalky, and all the bottles had been open. She palmed her head. She'd known from first-hand experience not to take things from strangers, but then she got a little thirsty and ended up drinking whatever was handed to her. Some sobriety coach she turned out to be. Something moved by the side of her head. She turned and yelled. By her head was a snarling, furry face with red eyes and long, sharp fangs. And if you would like to know what happens to Ozma and in the Paris Catacombs, Hannah and Other Stories is available right now from all major retailers. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple Books, Kobo. And if you read it, please leave me a review so I know what you thought. Heck, if enough people leave their thoughts, we could see a paperback someday. It's currently only available in ebook, but perhaps someday we'll get a paperback and maybe even an audiobook. But for now, my followers of fear, I wish you all a good night and pleasant nightmares. I'll see you again very soon. Bye.